Why should you care about cybersecurity? After all, isn't that just a nerd problem? Well, there's a lot for us to talk about, and we're going to get started with all of that right now. So why should you care about cybersecurity? I'm going to break down 3 reasons why you should care about cybersecurity, even if you have nothing to do with tech or anything at all. And if at any point during this video you have thoughts about anything that I'm saying, definitely leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Point number 1, cybersecurity impacts more than just you. A common statement that I often hear people say is, I don't have anything worth stealing. Another one would be, well, we're all gonna get hacked anyway. You see, a common misconception is that you do have something worth stealing. If anything, your identity has value, and attackers may try to steal elements of that to commit acts of fraud. Another part of it could be your bank account, could be a number of other accounts that you operate. You definitely don't want an attacker to just have access to that. That's definitely not good. And beyond that, thinking bigger picture, they may not necessarily be interested in just you as an individual. They might be interested in the platforms you use or in individuals that also share a platform that you use or may work at your company. You see, attackers are often looking for the path of least resistance and that's in order to get to their target. And if you are the path of least resistance, then they're going to be after you. And so because you didn't take steps to secure your accounts using long passwords, multi-factor authentication, and some of the other cybersecurity best practices that we talk about on this channel, attackers are then able to pivot and attack other people. We all have a shared responsibility to security, and it's important that we recognize that and each do our part. Now, this can even expand whenever we're talking about even bigger picture, such as whenever attackers that are lined up with different nation states are attacking one another. For instance, if you work in an area where critical infrastructure is involved, you're definitely going to be a target. Or if you work in an area where privileged information is at play, you're also definitely going to be a target. Now, most of you watching this video probably don't do either. And so you probably think, okay, well then I must not be a target. Definitely false. Remember, you don't want to give the attackers anything, certainly not a freebie. And none of us want attackers to commit fraud using our name or any of our information, especially knowing that, perhaps an attacker might have stolen someone else's information because they exploited some sort of weakness in one of our own accounts. That's definitely not a good feeling. Point number 2, cyber attacks can have deadly outcomes. Now, if you're familiar with the history of cyber attacks, especially in the recent past, then you know that something like ransomware can actually have deadly consequences. And it doesn't even have to be ransomware. It can be any form of malware. For instance, we saw WannaCry absolutely paralyze hospitals, and that made it incredibly difficult for hospitals to be able to bring in new patients, process surgeries, and perform other kinds of life-saving tasks. In some scenarios, these attacks can lead to death or bodily harm. For instance, if you watch my Stuxnet video, you can check it out right here. Yes, yeah, I wear a robe in that video, so I don't know if that's an incentive for you to watch it, but check it out. Then you know that attack actually led to physical infrastructure being damaged. And of course, if you're anywhere near that, that can cause some sort of bodily injury. And so you definitely, you can definitely see evidence historically of cyber attacks causing physical damage, causing harm to individuals. And again, think of those scenarios where one of these attacks happens, it causes some sort of physical damage or even worse, a death, and it was because attackers were able to exploit your own weak credentials and then expand access throughout the system. Point number 3 is cybersecurity is actually, believe it or not, easy enough on a person-to-person basis. Now, we've established that the weight of failure is a pretty big deal, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the steps required to prevent these kinds of outcomes is challenging. In fact, it's actually fairly easy. In fact, we've talked about several of those things on this channel. In fact, one of the things that we've talked about is password security, and you can check it out on this video. So you absolutely should click that video right now, learn about password security, and enable multi-factor authentication, hint, and then hit subscribe so you can always learn more. See you next time.